Barbie is about to open and fully expected to defeat Oppenheimer at the box office. The wind that is expected to give Mattel in the proverbial sails is likely the reason why industry trade Variety only now revealed that the live-action He-Man reboot is dead at Netflix, although it has been for some time. As such, the timing of this article appears strategic for two reasons. First, the sheer embarrassment will be overshadowed by the release of Barbie. And second, Mattel now needs a new buyer for the He-Man movie rights, and this article will let the industry know that they're up for grabs. That's new though. The trades never had to report that the He-Man movie rights were available before. They were always sold behind the scenes, without issue. But this time, it would appear Mattel are struggling with finding a taker. What could possibly have happened that tarnished the He-Man brand so? We shall see, for in this editorial, I will begin with going through this article which relays the official story behind what went wrong with He-Man at Netflix. But it does so with some very noticeable anomalies, so then I will be going through what I think is missing from that official narrative, and finally, where this leaves rights holder Mattel. In their July 18th exclusive, Variety writes, Masters of the Universe, a live-action movie based on He-Man and a slew of other popular Mattel toys, is officially dead at Netflix, according to multiple Variety sources. As we will see though, and that is what makes this article so telling, those sources have a slightly different story. It's almost as if this article was initiated by sources from one company reaching out to Variety. But when Variety reached out to sources from the other company, they got a slightly different story, which is reflected in the final write-up. Insiders said that close to $30 million has already been spent on development costs and the cash that's been shelled out to hold on to talent, like the previously announced lead Kyle Allen and the film's heat-seeking directing duo Adam and Ada Nee. Other knowledgeable sources estimate all-in costs for development at twice that figure. So even here, sources preach vastly different costs, but moving on. After referencing that the movie was in development at both Fox, Warner and Sony prior to landing at Netflix, Variety continues. For the latest film iteration, the budget came in at over $200 million, with cameras set to roll this February, sources said. Last spring, however, Netflix was confronted with a stunning stock drop that saw the powerful steamer shed $50 billion in value after investors became concerned about the company's subscriber losses. So we are led to believe, and probably by Mattel sources because this is in their interest to push out there, that $200 million budget was just too much for Netflix, in light of their recent troubles and financial situation. Case in point, the article continues. Sources close to Masters of the Universe said after that point, the streamer refused to shell out more than $150 million to see up-and-comer Allen pick up He-Man's sword. To me, that sounds like a cover story that Mattel would want to put out there, blaming Netflix's financial situation for the movie imploding. However, Mattel aren't in control of how Variety frames the story, and indeed, in the very next paragraph, it is stated, a source familiar with Netflix said the stock drop was irrelevant to the budget issues on Masters, noting that its content spend has been flat at $17 billion for 2 years, despite market fluctuation. But since Netflix sources denies the market situation was an issue, like Mattel sources presumably would have you believe, what other reason could there be that Netflix wanted to cap He-Man's budget? And there is no disagreement between sources about that. The Nee brothers, who came in riding high as directors of Sandra Bullock's rom-com hit The Lost City, worked with producers, including Todd Black, and Mattel's Robbie Brenner to get the budget down, even as significant pre-production around the film still took place. Producers brought back a proposed $180 million budget to the table, and Netflix still balked, never handing the movie an official green light. One source with knowledge of the budget talks said the final figure included costs spent on development. Okay, so that would mean that of that 180 million, 30 to 60 million were already spent, leaving 120 to 150 million for the actual making of the movie. Which is still a lot of money to spend on a Netflix movie that will get no theatrical release, a point which is later made in the article. Yet it's not an amount Netflix at one point were unwilling to spend, otherwise they would not have acquired the project in the first place. But now they wanted it cheaper, so Netflix and the filmmakers even considered shooting Masters of the Universe and the proposed sequel simultaneously to amortize the expense they added. Now that sounds like a deal Netflix should be all over, but the article continues. Multiple parties said the streamer is enamored with the filmmaker's siblings, but could not reach a middle ground. What's interesting here is that Netflix surely must have had a pretty good idea of how expensive an endeavor this was going to be already when they acquired it from Sony, and they were fine with it then, and even keen to make the deal happen. But now it sounds to me like Netflix are more interested in these directors, whose one movie wasn't even that good, than they are in He-Man. Something must have changed between now and when they first got the rights. Whatever could have happened in the meantime, that Variety isn't telling us, presumably because no one from either Mattel nor Netflix told them. Apart from the article's lead picture, Variety has absolutely no reference to Netflix's previous high-profile He-Man outing, the animated revival series Masters of the Universe Revelation. That's quite the omission, because if you recall from when it came out, it was a pretty big deal, with Season 1 Part 1 opening in the top 10 in pretty much all of Netflix territories around the world. So why is it not mentioned here? Why are they not mentioning that a Season 2 is supposedly in development and still coming to Netflix in the future? Because Revelation broke the brand, that's why, as evident by Season 1 Part 2. Which came out just a few months later, but it did not show up on any charts anywhere. Despite a strong start, that series pulled a Star Wars The Last Jedi on the Masters of the Universe, and Netflix have the internal metrics to prove it. I can only imagine that is why they are less willing to pay what a He-Man movie costs now than they were when the deal was made. Because now the brand is broken, but at the same time, I don't think either Netflix or Mattel wants to admit that is the real reason, because together, they are the ones who broke it, and now Mattel can't sell it. Now, some of you may interject that no, it was Kevin Smith who was the showrunner, he was the one who broke it. But the reality, as we've uncovered in several earlier videos, is that Kevin Smith was the showrunner in name only. He came in late in development, so his job was more than anything to put in some jokes here and there and hype the project up in public. Which he failed to do after being taken down by Clownfish TV and for being exposed as never having been the fan he claimed to have been. But the real shot caller was, allegedly, Netflix's very own producer Ted Biaselli. I think that if Ted Biaselli hadn't insisted on the series being this current year Tila-centric Last Jedi style deconstruction, and if Mattel had stood up for their brand and challenged him, then Revelation would have been a huge hit, as the early viewing figures indicated it by default should have been, and then Netflix right now would have had the internal metrics to justify a green light, even at 180 or even 200 million. But due entirely to their own mismanagement, they instead have metrics which tell them that at this point they're better off writing off 30 to 60 million in acquisition and development costs, than to actually move forward with making the movie, which was absolutely going to be a franchise starter. So, where does that leave rights holder Mattel? The two biggest brands in Mattel's portfolio are Barbie and He-Man. Both of them should by rights be major A-list theatrical brands, but Hollywood has spent years trying to figure out both of them, which really shouldn't be that hard. Even so, at the time of making this video, Barbie is already showing some signs of dividing the audience, while where He-Man is concerned, as Variety puts it, what is most palpable, nearly a dozen conversations with people close to the project have illustrated, is a growing sadness that He-Man, She-Ra and their cohorts won't make it to screen anytime soon. The article also states that after Netflix pulled the plug, the producers already tried selling the movie to Universal, who wouldn't have it. Though they have signed another deal with the directors, so you can expect that if and when the movie is picked up by someone else, it will be a fresh start with new filmmakers. When and where that will be though is, as of now, anyone's guess. The whole point of this article, again, is to let the industry know that He-Man is up for grabs. There's even a pitch in it. Mattel CEO Ynon Kreiss has been touting its value in plain sight. It's as big as Marvel and DC, Kreiss told the New Yorker recently. It's hundreds of pages of characters and sorcerers and vehicles and weaponry, you name it. And then you flip through the pages and there's a movie, and here's a movie, and here's a TV show. It's endless. He is not wrong, of course, that potential is there, but I do believe Hollywood is going to need a more detailed pitch than that. Because if they truly saw the potential, we'd be on movie 7 by now. But they don't, so it's going to be a while, especially after Revelation broke the brand. And honestly, that wait may be for the better. Look at what Netflix are doing to The Witcher. Look at what Apple are doing to The Foundation. Look at what Amazon are doing to The Rings of Power and The Wheel of Time. Look at what Disney are doing with, well, just about everything. Without a strong brand manager and legacy protector in place, which Masters of the Universe does not have, do you trust Hollywood to do He-Man right? Let me know in the comments. And before you go, if you do like He-Man, check out our extensive MOTU franchise retrospectives, so far culminating with the ultimate retrospective of the 1987 movie.